So, this video is on bad cops, mandated reporters, and forcing homeless victims to break the law in order to turn in abuse. We are assumed to be guilty until proven innocent, and we're not allowed to prove our innocence. When we try to turn in crimes, they will, oh, you got to listen to Melissa in that conversation just this morning. That never should have happened. You can hear in Melissa's voice, she doesn't care how many people hurt me. She doesn't care if people kill my sister and my niece. She doesn't care if people throw soda bottles at me and soda cans and destroy my vehicle. She does not care. What she cares about is their bottom line. When it comes to mandatory reporters, they're supposed to report if we want to harm ourselves, if we want to harm others, and if others are harming us. And every single mandatory reporter in America has ignored that third one over and over and over and over and over again. Nobody has tried to investigate, and the reason for this is because of my predators running around telling people that I'm quote-unquote mentally ill and quote-unquote schizophrenic and quote-unquote delusional. Police officers cannot diagnose that. Neither can drug addicts like Natalie Bollinger or Ted Bollinger or Alicia Bollinger. I don't have a family that actually cares. I never did. Okay, I grew up in the system because my parents couldn't stay off of drugs. Reality. Not because I'm alone, I'm easy to victimize and easy to blow off. Because I have PTSD, I am easy to talk over and easy to dismiss. And because I have autistic traits and I have Tourette syndrome, well, take a look at all of the serial killers that they portray on TV. You don't know anybody who's actually a serial killer, but you know plenty of people that you think are creepy or weird. Yeah, those weird kids, a lot of them are autistic. And that twitch that you seem to give every serial killer. Like, I have Tourette syndrome. When I wink, my eye's funny. That right there doesn't mean that I'm going to kill people. Now, because I am disabled, I am at a much, much higher risk of abuse. When you add that to the bullshit from Natalie and all of her friends, and then you add the fact that the police won't do anything about it, I get sent around in circles. I do have special needs. I have the evidence. It's obvious I have the evidence. Why is it that the only way to send this evidence is over the internet, on YouTube and Facebook? And these people's, they say, oh, we can't look at that evidence. Why is it they can't look at that evidence? Because of bad cops and bad workers that care previously. Why is it they can't look at any of this stuff on YouTube? Oh, well, apparently their work prevents them from looking it up. Well, I can look it up. I can look it up on my phone with their internet. And I bring my phones with me. Why don't we sit down at the upper building, as was suggested repeatedly? Of course, Shelley doesn't care. Oh, the internet doesn't work down here. I know it doesn't work down here. I know. Let's go to the upper building. I'll show you everything. Police Well, they'll pawn you off onto the right people, but the right people get the wrong idea. They intentionally get the wrong idea because they don't want to do their jobs as mandatory reporters. And you get to hear all these people who are mandatory reporters talking about their paid job. And then we also have the people who are in charge of those people who are not mandatory reporters, apparently. And they get to decide what their mandatory reporters can and cannot report. They refuse to look at the evidence. They refuse to allow me a safe environment to turn it into. Because here's the situation. In Colorado, I was assaulted by police officers who were trying to frame me as a violent nut job out to hurt people and out to hurt myself, and that is not the case. I was trying to help turn in Natalie's killer, and the public wouldn't stop harming me, and the police wouldn't stop fucking with me. I needed actual help, and I had to turn to drug addicts repeatedly because those are the only people who will even pretend to give a shit until they've ripped you off for everything you fucking got. I'm disabled, all right? I should be able to go to the police and have them take the situation seriously. And they don't. They run me around in circles. I'm forced to turn in my predators to themselves. You got to witness this morning, if you listen to those videos, Sean committing a felony, putting me at risk. I let him know that Melissa and Shelly were committing felonies. So he had Shelly call me. Melissa. We're sent to these mental health places that aren't going to listen to us, and they're not going to look at any of the evidence that we have. I ran around to all these different places for over a year here in Tillamook trying to turn this stuff in, trying to get a stop put to it. Instead, I got victim blamed and victim shamed. None of these mandatory reporters would look at any of the evidence, and they use that as an excuse not to turn it in. Oh, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Oh, let's fill out housing paperwork. Let's fill out housing paperwork. The way they do it is by refusing to investigate the abuse. Abuse over slander, which allows that slander to stand. If you look back through all of my court cases, you'll notice I was prevented from going to a lot of them. The police knew what I was trying to do. The public knew what I was trying to do. I spoke what I was doing freely on YouTube, on Facebook. And these people ignored all of that and made up their own stories. Called me mentally ill, and then any story they want to make up is good enough. Do they actually investigate? Hell, even my psychological evaluations were half-assed. The first one was with an attorney who was hell-bent on trying to have me pegged as mentally ill. So she wrote in there a lot of stuff being his, well, according to him, they were very close friends. That was his selling point. See, the police know that there is a failure on every level to protect us. If we're on the streets, chances are we don't have friends or family who cares. What we've got is a bunch of other people mulling around in their own fucked up stupor over the shit that they've had to go through, and then they dump a bunch of child molesters and rapists and schizophrenics off on the streets on us. And then we're stuck dealing with those people every single day. When we go to a meal, we've got to go to a meal where we do have to worry about those schizophrenic people screaming usually, not usually getting violent. Nearly every time that there is violence is because people put their hands on these schizophrenic folks. That's not every single time, but nearly every time. So I see that schizophrenic people are treated this way. I know that the mentally ill tag to the courts means schizophrenic, delusional, and violent. You guys get to see repeatedly when these people are getting violent with me, I am not getting violent back. I am protecting my evidence. I am not interested in hitting Andrew Wolnez. I'm interested in not having my phone broke and not getting physically injured, but my phone is more important than my body. I'm sent to these police officers to turn them in to themselves. How many times has this happened? How many times in multiple different states where people are assaulting me over the Natalie Bollinger situation or abusing children, and the abuse that started over the Natalie Bollinger situation and me being prevented illegally from going to court, from even knowing what's going on, being lied to at every corner, being sent to mental health because people are threatening to kill me and my friends and family, and the police won't do anything about it. Over and over. And then mental health. Well, these are mandatory reporters. If they are mental health workers, they are mandatory reporters. This is one of the reasons they keep pawning us off on peer support. I spoke about how in Hood River, the peer support workers told me that they are not mandatory reporters. And I spoke up about that. Then one of them claimed that she was in her previous job. But all the mandatory reporters wanted to do is pawn me off on peer support. Peer support, peer support. Well, people like Melissa are in charge of peer support. So we're trying to turn in people who are committing felonies against us, and we're sent to the very people who are committing these felonies for them to investigate themselves. Is that what we're doing here? We get to see with Melissa, obviously that's a scare tactic. Sean knew exactly what he was doing when he did that. He knew exactly what he was doing when he did not call me the day before. And then they try to say, oh, well, we're only going to apportion just a tiny bit of time because you don't actually fucking matter. We're not going to do our jobs as mandatory reporters by having a mandatory reporter assigned to this. They do have mandatory reporters there. Melissa admitted it. Now, the police, when I have to try to turn them in, what have they done repeatedly? They've repeatedly incarcerated me and then lost the evidence. No, they didn't. Scott DaCosta couldn't present the evidence that he had in Chapel, Nebraska. And the state troopers couldn't present the evidence in Chapel, Nebraska because they took part in assaulting me George Floyd style. Stephanie Mejia was on the phone. She was supposedly going to try to help me in, but this is the issue with having to rely on internet strangers because my friends don't care. Stephanie Mejia used it as a vacation instead to go cheat on her husband. And yeah, I had to record all of this shit and put it on the internet to prove that it's true, but none of these places will look at it. You know, there's easy fixes I have had to go through with every one of their excuses not to. I have had to find a solution. Now imagine if your 9-year-old daughter had to go through everything that I have had to go through for 9 years. Now let's change physical assaults over to rape. Let's say that she's being told by the police who are refusing to investigate the rape that it's because she said something. Well, maybe you shouldn't have said anything. You were only raped because you spoke up about being raped. That's not how it works. And police officer after police officer have tried to play these head games. They assume that I'm retarded. And then instead of looking at the evidence, these places, they say, oh, we believe you, and then they write down that we're delusional. They don't look at any of the evidence. They say, oh, we don't need to look at it. We believe you. No, 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 no. We're not playing that fucking game either. I was repeatedly sent back to TFCC to have TFCC investigate themselves. I was also told to turn them into Adult Protective Services. Adult Protective Services has never tried to investigate any of this. They've never, ever made an effort to send somebody out, sit with me and my evidence, and hear what I have to say. These police know that none of the public pretenders are going to try to defend us because the public has this belief that we're all schizophrenic, delusional drug addicts out to rape your kids. Who raped Natalie? Ted Bollinger. Everywhere I go, they downplay the abuse that I have to endure. They downplay the situation with Natalie or pretend that it's a delusion. They pretend that these recordings of assaults are delusions. They refuse to look at or even acknowledge any of the psychological evaluations that I have that show that I am suffering from PTSD. I am suffering from the effects of social isolation, which is what this gaslighting is meant to do. It's meant to isolate the victim. It's meant to try to convince people not to listen to the victim. It's meant to try to get anybody who might possibly care to look the other way. Imagine if your 9-year-old daughter was being raped and literally had to start recording the videos of her being raped. And everybody made every excuse not to. Oh, we can't accept it this way. We can't accept it that way. You have to do it in this format. You have to do it in that format. I don't know how to do any of this shit. Literally, they're going out of their way to make it impossible to show them the amount of abuse that I'm going through. One of the things they do is sarcastically ask me when I tell them that people are assaulting me, well, why would they do that? Well, because of the Natalie Bollinger situation and its popularity on the internet. Oh, so the internet's assaulting you. No, the internet is not assaulting me. The slander on the internet, people in your town are going to see. All right? A&E is a very popular channel. A lot of these true crime channels are popular. Natalie Bollinger's death is popular the world over. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds of YouTube channels and in many countries, many languages, and Facebook groups, and all of these different types of groups. There are hundreds of these, and I get treated like these are delusions. Now you got to hear Russell verified he saw those videos, but he's not a mandatory reporter. Isn't this what I've been bitching about since I got here? And they do this everywhere. When I say they, I mean the police. Because of the assault by Officer Waylon Lolatai, everywhere I go, even though I wasn't convicted, I was the one assaulted. I was prevented from having the body cameras of that showing that I was trying to tell them about abuse, and they did not care. What they wanted to do is take away my phone and lock me up for 3 days so they could have me pegged with something. Try to claim that I was schizophrenic and delusional and trying to kill myself, and that was not the case. I was being cut off from my friends by predators on the internet who were going through and taking evidence of the abuse against me and evidence that I spoke up about the abuse. I had to go to the fucking media. I had to go to social media to try to speak up about this abuse. The police know that nobody cares about the fucking homeless. And then we can't even get started on the women that I've had to deal with. Can you imagine if you came in and I was a mandatory reporter and you came in because this is the agency you were sent to? What are these different sites all advertise? They'll give you phone numbers and pamphlets. And we got to go through that string, didn't we? We went full circle of a whole bunch of places that say that it's not their job to do anything about it. No, all they do, they're just a referral service. All of these services are just referral services that give you a number to another place, that'll give you another number, that'll give you a number to another place, that'll give you another number. And that is how it has been. You could not go out of your way further to avoid evidence of abuse if you tried, and they are trying. See, the things that I'm having to endure, that these people want to make excuses and victim blame and victim shame. The things they want to pretend that I'm delusional for saying. I posted up evidence of the truth, and I had to post it up publicly. And instead of taking it seriously, I was running around to mental health places that wanted me to fill out a piece of paper every time I went in so that they can tell the government, hey, Sean came in, so you have to pay us. Oh, you're a homeless man who's been assaulted? Mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. And the mental health workers, what do? It's not my job, it's not my job, it's not my job. Housing, housing, housing. What happened when I got housing? Did getting housing stop the abuse? No, it didn't. Meanwhile, I had told all of these mandatory reporters in Nebraska and Colorado before Natalie was fucking killed, and in Chesapeake Bay. Like, I was in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I had that evidence on my phone. The police would not look at the evidence on my phone. The person that they had me talk to wouldn't look at the evidence on my phone. I was severely dehydrated. Natalie knew that I was severely dehydrated. Hell, I got screenshot after screenshot of that stuff, but will they look? No, they already decided my guilt. Kind of like they already decided they were going to go out of their way to make sure I couldn't even go to court. See, the problem is, as a disabled person on a fixed income, there's a lot of issues that go along with that make it impossible for me to get the help that I need without somebody willing to look at the fact that it's happening. Anytime I try to turn this shit in, what do my predators do? Again and again, they pull the mentally ill thing. The police have done this. The DA's office has done this repeatedly, over and over and over again. They get to use the abuse from the Natalie case and the Natalie situation and the stalking from Natalie and her friends and the assaults from them. They get to use the outcome of that because I was prevented from having a court date, from going to court, from even knowing that I had a court date. And the mistakes that they made, their mistakes, they get to use to pretend that I knew where Natalie was the whole time. I fucking didn't. I had no idea where Natalie was. I thought she was in Virginia with her family because she went to Virginia to flee abuse from Tim Beeson and Ted Bollinger. That's one of the things that I was trying to explain the whole time. I've got people calling me up and threatening to fucking kill me, telling me that they're this girl's boyfriend and this girl's father and shit. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to the cops about this shit. They're blowing me off. They're saying, oh, well, I got real police work to do. Or have you tried going to, and they name off some mental health agency. The police told me to go to the churches here. They might help. And I went to some of the churches and I got some food there too. I also got victimized while there. I got assaulted on the church property. It wasn't just Andrew Wolnez who assaulted me. It wasn't just Andrew Wolnez. Multiple people assaulted me on multiple church properties. They want to blow it off. That allows these people to get a big head and do it again, kind of like Officer Waylon Lolotai. He assaulted me in Boulder. Every one of these places that I'm trying to turn in, they want to try to convince me to go somewhere else. I don't have any money. And now you're wanting me to spend more money and more money and more money. You know what? If your 9-year-old daughter was raped, would you force her to go through all of this to turn it in? Melissa already broke the law repeatedly, going back as long as I've known her. I go in there and I tell these people about the abuse that I'm enduring, and that includes by the police. I tell them over and over and over again, I have evidence of them doing it, and they're doing it again and again and again. When you try to turn in a police officer, they will try to do what's called feigning an assault. They will back you into a corner. You've gone there in good faith to turn in crimes that have been committed against you, and they will back you into a corner. They will start talking to you like this. This is what happens. Now you can take a look. You can listen to how these cops just wanted to play head games. Imagine if your 9-year-old daughter tried to turn in rape and they wanted to play those head games instead. Imagine she went to all the right people to begin with and told them about what was going on and explained about her disabilities. And instead of taking that into account, they use those disabilities, those vulnerabilities, those things that make it so that she can't run away from her attacker. The things that make it so that her rapists get to do it again and again and again and say she's mentally ill, she's mentally ill, she's mentally ill. So she has to record it and put it on YouTube and Facebook. And then she gets in trouble because she's posting up violent crimes that were committed against her. She shouldn't have had to post it on YouTube. But then you just say grown man and it's okay. No, mandatory reporters have a job to do. Just because the disabled person is a man or an adult doesn't mean that they don't have to do their jobs. Now imagine after all that, all of these mandatory reporters want to send her to people who are not mandatory reporters. Oh no, these are peer support. And these peer support, well, they don't know shit about being raped because they're drug addicts and felons. And your 9-year-old daughter is sent around to TFCC and CARE and TCCHC. And they're going out of their way not to work with the victim. When the victim says, hey, I don't have access to the computer to be able to look up that stuff, and I have to have the computer there because so much has happened. I have to have the actual evidence in front of me, the actual information in front of me to fill that stuff out. So we need to do it during a time when I can go into your office and open up my computer and we can do that. Those tides of change, by the way, that I had to do that with. It was not taken seriously. She wanted to call me up and fill out this paperwork at like 8:30 at night. No, I can't just plug my computer in at 8:30 at night, and she knew that too. Or at least I told her, not that she heard anything that came out of my mouth and took it seriously. Like I had to go in there, I want to say 5 different times about the abuse. And then it was Officer David Martinez, and he never bothered to follow up. He's taken part in the abuse through all of this. He also has a history of this type of abuse in Oregon State Police. He was fired. And then here he took part in it too. When I had to try to turn in abuse from Mossam Vajan, threats and attempted assaults and actual assaults. I was arrested for improper use of 911, and all they did was mentally ill, mentally ill, mentally ill for 15 months over and over and over again. He's mentally ill, mentally ill, mentally ill. Oh, we can deny him all of his rights, like if he's got an attorney for, or if he's without an attorney for 14 days or longer, they gotta let you go. But instead, they kept on pulling the mentally ill thing. And every single time that they pulled this mentally ill stuff, their assessor says, he's free to go. He can testify. He does know what's going on. Unfortunately, the problem is nobody else knows what's going on because they're not listening. They're busy assuming, they're busy talking over me, and they're busy trying to make a free dollar. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent to keep me in jail for 15 months. To try to frame me as some violent dude who is running down the street assaulting people at random with pepper spray or bear mace. Like, no. Literally, I couldn't run. Literally, I never got off my knees. Like, this is definitely not the case. And over and over and over again, this is how the homeless are treated. We're all mentally ill, and they're going to push that mentally ill thing. And if you try to turn them in, well, they'll claim that you're schizophrenic and delusional and that you're making this stuff up. And meanwhile, you guys get to see I'm not making it up. And these places like CARE, after they've committed felonies to help cover up this shit, these mistakes, by themselves, their co-workers, and these other agencies. Small town mentality, right? Well, no, not really. They do this shit in big cities too. A homeless person is worthless in this country. I'm homeless. Homeless people are treated like dogs. So what if you got fucking injured in Vietnam and can't work anymore? So what if you have speech problems that are severe because somebody decided to shoot you while you were at war in a foreign country, and now you're out here having speech problems and getting abused by the police? Now, if you weren't homeless, this would be all over the news. They'd be like, this fucking police officer and his buddies just beat the shit out of a fucking Vietnam veteran for being disabled, for getting shot in the head. But what's going to happen in that situation? He's homeless. They're going to say he was resisting arrest and intoxicated. That's it. That's if they don't kill him, which is a possibility. So we've got these laws that are supposed to protect us from exactly the things I'm going through. The mandatory reporter laws. When these people don't report it immediately, when they don't take it seriously, it results in the victim being victimized over and over and over again. If their predators have a heads up, like with Natalie Bollinger, yeah, she definitely had a heads up that I was trying to turn her into the police. She definitely had a heads up that I was trying to turn in her dad to the police. She definitely had a heads up that I was trying to turn in Tim Beeson to the police. Maddie Boa definitely had a heads up. Why? Because when I went to mandatory reporters like the police and mental health took advantage of that situation to make money. As long as they can fill in the slot, they can take the cash from the U.S. government, the same thing that CARE does. They claim that they're a nonprofit. Well, everybody who works there is profiting from not doing their fucking jobs. What kind of a fucking sick human being can blow somebody off who is disabled and being assaulted repeatedly over things they didn't do? That forces victims to do desperate things. That forces us to literally break the law. That allows our predators to coerce us, to intimidate our friends, our families, other witnesses. And police officers repeatedly ignored the abuse against me, knowing that I am disabled, including many other people who claimed that they turned this stuff in, that they tried to turn in the abuse that was going on, but police didn't do anything about it. They didn't even try. And then I've got to deal with some people who've got severe mental and control issues, pretending to be people that they're not. All sorts of fake accounts after Natalie was killed. They did this both before and after Natalie was killed, and Natalie Bollinger's family coordinated in all of it. They coordinated to destroy evidence, to slander my name, and the police didn't do a goddamn thing about it. Why would they? Because before Natalie was killed, for a whole year before she was killed, the police ignored this abuse and treated it like it was a delusion. Would not look at the evidence, sent me to mental health, who said, "Oh, I believe you, I don't have to look at it." Well, then why aren't you doing your job as a mandatory reporter? Why aren't you turning it in right now? These people aren't just threatening me. These people have assaulted me multiple times in real life and coordinated with one another to do so. Some of the people who have harassed me on the internet for years have coordinated with Andrew Wolnez, and there is evidence of it, and I did show it to lawyers, public pretenders. These are mandatory reporters. All of them are mandatory reporters. My public pretenders did not care that people were assaulting me and that's why I was calling 911. They wanted to run around in circles and say, "Oh, well, we need a video evidence of something happening within like 10 or 20 minutes of the phone call." Well, tell me what time the phone call was, first of all. Help me out here, because I have literally hundreds of recordings of people threatening me, assaulting me, throwing things at me, fucking the damage done to my vehicle, kicking in my vehicle. Actual footage of Andrew Wolnez kicking my vehicle on multiple occasions. And still, the people that care, the people at TFCC, the police and the courts, want to ignore the psychological evaluations that they made me have. Their own psychological evaluations, all of them state that the Natalie Bollinger situation is true. And what are they trying to pretend is not true? What are they trying to pretend is a delusion? The Natalie Bollinger situation. We're still trying to set up an appointment for them to look at this evidence, and hopefully it goes through. But a mandatory reporter needs to be there for my safety, and they need to not call these agencies here in Tillamook who have repeatedly committed these crimes against me, which at this point has been all of them. Mandatory reporters have two choices. One, they can take it seriously and turn it in, which is what they're required to do by law. Or two, they can ignore it, make a profit off of it, allow the victim to continually be victimized and treated like it's a delusion. These mandatory reporters didn't want to do the job of a mandatory reporter. Every one of them wanted to pass the buck. Tamara, she was my first caseworker, and she was going to help me to turn in the abuse. She was going to help me to stop it. But for her, the first thing we had to do was get me on disability, because it was obvious I was not able to take care of or care for myself. But then she quit her job to make sure that the abuse I was going through, that she was aware was happening, that her son wouldn't have to go through that when he becomes an adult. So she quit her job. And then I had no one, and I've had no one since. I do need assistance. I've been telling them what assistance I need, and instead of assisting me, I'm, again, sent in circles. Like the attorney that I had in Wyoming. Like I said, I've been all over the country being abused over this shit. The attorney in Wyoming said that he was only allowed to talk to me over the phone. He wasn't allowed to send stuff in the mail or across emails. Then later on, he told me he was only allowed to send stuff across the mail. He wasn't allowed to call. And then, like, no matter what, if I wasn't able to call, then he could only do it through a telephone call. If I didn't have an address to receive mail at, then he could only send mail. That was a situation where I was trying to turn in child abuse. I went to the cops repeatedly. I called it anonymously, and then I called it live on my YouTube channel. I had to try to get those girls safe somehow. You get to see how the Rawlins Police Department treated me on camera. They treated me much worse off. But I wasn't just going to let Rihanna keep on hitting those girls. Getting drunk every day and hitting those girls. If I got to spend some time in jail for that, that's fine. They use the mentally ill tag. This is the 3 things you go in for. You go in there for if you want to harm yourself, if you want to harm others, or if others are harming you. If people trying to bully you to kill yourself, that's the 3rd kind. That's people harming you, not you trying to harm yourself and not you trying to harm others. But they will avoid that, pretend that you didn't tell them over and over and over again, and just ask you the same 2 questions over and over. Do you want to hurt yourself or others? No. Are you sure? I'm sure I do not want to harm myself or anyone else. These people are trying to bully me to kill myself. I want help stopping this. These people are driving me nuts. Are you sure you don't want to hurt yourself? Do you have a history of hurting yourself? Oh, and there's one too. Self-harm is usually because a victim is trying to turn in abuse and they're being blown off. The people who are most likely to do this are the quote-unquote mentally ill, right? Isn't that what you say? No, this is used as an excuse to peg us with the mentally ill tag. When you blow us off and ignore us so much that we literally have to self-harm to get someone there because we're trying to turn in abuse. We shouldn't have to harm ourselves. We shouldn't be harmed by police officers. We should not be harmed by jail guards. But then again, everywhere I go, even though Officer Waylon Lolatai was recorded assaulting multiple other people, not just me on camera. Well, because I was arrested because they pretended I assaulted him. Even though I was never convicted, they had to drop the charges. Everywhere I go, that's on my arrest record. Also, the mentally ill crap that they were able to put in my paperwork by ignoring my diagnoses of autism and repeatedly trying to tell mental health and hospitals that I was schizophrenic or delusional. That the things with Natalie weren't true, that I was making it up. I had to go to the same police officers who didn't do their jobs as mandatory reporters before Natalie was killed. I had to go to those same cops and same agencies after Natalie was killed, and they all did the same thing. They played the mentally ill tag as an excuse to ignore all of the abuse. Not just across the internet, but in real life. I needed help being able to record these things. And as I've said many times, safety in numbers. When Mr. Focius pulled up across the street, well, there was a guy there named Brian and his dog Gucci. So things are less likely to happen under those circumstances. Police didn't investigate any of this shit. They assumed my guilt and weren't willing to look at anything that said otherwise. Then when they realized I wasn't guilty, they started grasping for straws and blowing me off. Now let's look at this situation with Russell. 45 minutes. Okay, well, it's going to be more than 45 minutes. If a 9-year-old girl tells you, hey, I have video footage of me being raped over and over and over again, and video footage of me coming to you guys trying to turn in the fact that I keep getting raped, and video footage of me going to the police and getting the same runaround. Oh, we'll give you 45 minutes. Okay. That's what I get. That's what I get. If that's the amount of time that I have to show this stuff in, I know that it's not nearly enough time. There's also my records from them. Those need to be turned in as well. What all did Shelley destroy? Was it just that picture? How much did they destroy? Now, I went in there repeatedly and tried to show them evidence of the Natalie Bollinger situation, tried to get them to listen to me. They knew that the Natalie Bollinger situation was real. They had evidence that it was real, and still they coordinated with TFCC and the police to continue with this delusional crap and sending me around in circles, pretending they're going to help me with housing, doing absolutely nothing to help with housing, while this abuse continues. While I am socially isolated. Repeatedly, officers have used child molesters and rapists to antagonize me. I'm not allowed to do anything back, or they pretend that I'm targeting child molesters and rapists for violence. That I'm stalking these child molesters and rapists. Like they did in Chapel, Nebraska when I tried to turn in Sheriff Scott DaCosta. See, that stuff that they pulled in Boulder, knowing that they were lying, gets to be used by every one of these law enforcement agencies and mental health agencies around here, California, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, Montana, Tennessee, Virginia. I've been to all these places since Natalie was killed. Bullied in all of these places. Same excuses in all of these places. All because I don't have a friend or family member who gives a shit to look at the evidence and help me turn it in. I had to pay my own sister $100 an hour to come look at evidence, and she never looked at any of the evidence. She just wanted to organize it. Tara, I don't need you to organize it. I need you to look at videos of people assaulting me. I need you to look at evidence of people threatening to kill you and your daughter. I need you to help me turn in the threats against my life, and your daughter's life. That's what I need. But she was too fucked up on drugs to be able to do that. And that sucks. I still paid her. And her friend destroyed a whole computer worth of evidence. Meanwhile, why do I have so much evidence? Most of this evidence is evidence of mandatory reporters blowing me off, sending me to people who are not mandatory reporters, and a lot of other BS. This is not okay. You guys look at this as a senseless rambling, but it's not. Again, I say, is this how you would treat a 9-year-old girl who was being raped? You won't listen to any of the witnesses that she tried to get help stopping the rape. No, you won't do that. You'll only listen to her predators. You'll only listen to the police who refuse to do their jobs. Leslie Carter, when we were talking about how autistic people are honest to a T, she said, well, unless they're afraid of getting in trouble. Well, you guys notice that I admit to the things that I do. I'm not afraid of getting in trouble. I'm afraid my evidence will never get seen, so I'm doing desperate shit to try to get it seen by the courts, by all these agencies that should have done something but refused to. Any excuse not to follow the mandatory reporting laws, including putting you in contact with or having one of your predators who is not a mandatory reporter call you up and try to bully you into what they're going to do. No. You're going to give me a mandatory reporter who's going to do their job. There are witnesses to these situations showing that I have been trying to get help, going back for years. Zane Woodring worked at CARE, and I don't want to bring his name up. I like him very much. But he's known for years that I'm trying to turn this stuff in. He's not a mandatory reporter. He's one of my favorite people in town, but here's the thing. There's a lot of people like him who try to do the right thing, and they're not going to let you keep your job if you do the right thing. They're not going to let you keep your job if you do your job as a mandatory reporter. And if you're not a mandatory reporter and you try to help a victim to actually stop the abuse instead of trying to just push housing like a crackhead, they're not going to let you keep your job. And Shay Darnell, as of yesterday, does not work at CARE any longer. She worked at both CARE and TFCC. All these interactions were going on with the police, and a lot of other situations. There's a lot of people and a lot of names involved, and these people do need to be talked to. I shouldn't have to post this stuff up on the internet, but look at how I'm being treated by all these agencies that I go to. This is what pushes men to end their own lives. No matter how much abuse I go through, everybody shows me outright they don't care enough to help put a stop to it by showing that it's happening. These mandatory reporters all want to pretend that I'm delusional after the fact. And they keep pushing that despite all of the psychological evaluations to the contrary. They keep trying to pretend that the Natalie Bollinger situation and the abuse that I have to endure over it are delusions, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. And the longer they drag this out and pretend they didn't see nothing, the more evidence of their own wrongdoing they get to destroy. That includes the police. After 1 year, they get to destroy their body camera evidence. When I tried to turn in abuse, they did send detectives to bully me for trying to turn it in, to antagonize the situation, to talk over me, and to literally not let me finish what I was saying. Like the situation with their lead investigator lady. She just kept on interrupting me to tell me that she's getting overtime and it's using up the county's money and so on. She said that over and over and over. She probably said that a dozen times in 45 minutes. Now, there was a witness there who knew that Natalie Bollinger's situation was real. That was Deputy Taylor. And that was when he should have said something. Instead, he walked off and disappeared. Deputy Taylor later wrote down on a inmate request form that the things that I was saying were true. So I've got evidence from all of these different agencies that they continued to pretend that I was delusional and pulling the mentally ill, suicidal, homicidal crap every time I tried to turn them in. Or they'd send me around in circles. It's a game, but obviously I'm not going to quit trying to turn this stuff in. I'm a human being. You guys have gotten to see this evidence is very real, and there is so much more of it. If I try to tell somebody what's going on, yeah, it sounds crazy. That's why somebody needs to be on the phone with me who knows that it's not a lie. Somebody who knows that it's not a delusion. Somebody who has taken the time to look. Now, we've got evidence that each of these agencies here in Tillamook were aware of the Natalie Bollinger situation and that it was true. We've got verification from the conversation with Russell this morning that, yeah, that picture that was up on the wall, he believed had stuff on it about Natalie Bollinger, and it was still there when he started working here. So it was definitely up for over a year, possibly up over 2 years. We've also got verification in their own paperwork and verification in my text messages that shows that I did send these people not only evidence that I was telling the truth and evaluations and so on from other mental health professionals showing that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional, and evidence that people were threatening my life. They took that string of messages to pretend that I was threatening their weekend worker. This is the phone number that I was given for somebody who was supposed to be an investigator. By not looking at this stuff, it's called plausible deniability. These mandatory reporters say, well, since I haven't seen it. No, if it's a credible allegation, you do need to take it seriously. If there's video evidence, then yeah, you do need to take it seriously. Have they? No. Have they worked with my abilities or disabilities? No. What they do is they waste my time with this housing shit that they're not doing their part. This eats up all of my time and all of my money doing all of this running around all of these different agencies just for them to commit felonies on my paperwork and then refuse to work with me or do anything about the felonies they committed. There is overwhelming evidence that I tried to turn this stuff in. There's also overwhelming evidence that they haven't taken this situation seriously. Now, hopefully it'll be more than 45 minutes. That 45 minutes is, I believe, supposed to be so that he can set up a meeting between me, him, and Sean. At this point, Sean has broken the law. He put one of the people who committed felonies against me and others. He had her contact me knowing that that was illegal. If he doesn't know that that's illegal, he should not have that position, interim or not. If your 9-year-old daughter was raped and she went to Sean and said, hey, one of the people that works for you, instead of doing their job to help me to turn it in or take it seriously, what she's doing is telling the people who are mandatory reporters there not to do their jobs when we're abused. And she's not even a mandatory reporter, and she's telling these people not to do their jobs. I'm still trying to turn in the rape. And obviously what she's doing is helping the rapist. Sean, I need to show you what your employees are doing to me so that it's taken seriously. I need to show you the actual evidence of this. Now, of course, these crimes, if we change these crimes over to rape for all of them, because these are heinous crimes against vulnerable adults, well, I might as well be saying that Melissa raped me. Now, I'm not going to say that. But in this scenario, this is a 9-year-old girl, and any crime committed against her by these people that is considered a crime against a vulnerable person, we're going to change to rape so that you actually care. I hope. Wow, it's been recording for over an hour. That's really nice. Now you get to hear when I say that to Miss Shelley, because Melissa. She just wanted to change the subject. Anything other than confront the issue. Imagine if Sean had the person who